My name's Dr. Carl Binder, and I'm CEO and founder of the Performance Thinking Network. And we help organizations accelerate their business results through the performance of their people. And we're really excited to be announcing our new collaboration with Dennis Murphy, who's a friend and has been a colleague for many years. Dennis is a remarkable professional. He started out the Naval Academy. He was a White House fellow. He was a captain of a nuclear sub and eventually in command of 6 nuclear subs before he retired from the Navy, and then went to Amgen, which is where we met him. But let me ask you, Dennis, can you tell us a little bit about your history and background?
Oh, sure. Thank you, Carl. It's great to be with you here. And I should say that, part of how we're launching this collaboration is I've just embarked on my third career as a consultant in a business I've started. I've called it Bridgeview Associates. And really a lot what I'm doing is leveraging my experience both at Amgen and in the Navy. And many of you may not realize that the Navy's nuclear submarine program is a real gold standard in high reliability operations and safety. And it's really, it's amazing because submarines operate in the harshest of environments, hundreds of feet underwater with a nuclear reactor. And we do it with 90% high school graduates and an average age of 22 to 23. And you might say, well, how do you do that? And a lot of that is built upon this idea of being an effective learning organization. And when I left the Navy and went to Amgen, I brought a lot of the principles of the Navy's nuclear program into Amgen's operations in manufacturing in particular, and we had some great success with that. But that's ended up how Carl and I ended up meeting. And so, Carl, maybe you could talk a little more about your professional background and maybe how we met at Amgen.
Yes, it's interesting how people can come to the same place, which is about continuous improvement from very different backgrounds. I started out trained as a behavior scientist. I was a doctoral candidate or doctoral student with B.F. Skinner at Harvard. And I spent the first 10 years of my career really studying learning and performance and how to measure it and working with special populations, especially on instructional topics. And then toward the end of the 70s, I was encouraged by one of my mentors to move into the corporate world. And so I started doing training there, but within a few years, really came under the influence of thought leaders in the field of performance improvement, particularly at the International Society for Performance Improvement. And that's actually where I first contacted Amgen as an organization. Over the years, one of the things that we did is we took what are really kind of complicated and somewhat nerdy models for performance improvement and spent a lot of years refining and distilling them to 2 simple models and plain English language. And what that means is that instead of this continuous performance improvement being just for professionals or specialists, we were able to work with everybody from the C-suite on all the way down to individual, frontline performers and engage them in ongoing contributions to performance improvement. And that really, Dennis and I met at Amgen after we had started to work with them for a bit. One of the things that you often do talk about, Dennis, is the learning organization. And a lot of people use that phrase. But I wonder if you could tell us a little bit more about what you mean when you use that phrase.
Sure, Carl. For me, the learning organization it's a bit Darwinian, actually. It's adapt or die. We all operate in complex environments with constant change going on. And leaders who really embrace personal development and organizational learning are those that are going to be most successful. And if you don't embrace it, then you risk being overtaken by those who do. And when I think about a learning organization, the first characteristic to me is about learning from success and failure and learning from others as well. And there's 2 pieces to that. One is something I talk about as a liability of success. And what I mean there is that sometimes leaders rest on their laurels. They read the press clippings of what they've done recently, and they take their eye off the ball. And those leaders sometimes aren't as good as they think they are, or their organizations aren't as good as they think that they are. And the other piece of it is about constructive dissatisfaction, a term coined by the UPS founder, Jim Casey, where you're constantly striving to be better. You're always looking for ways to be better. The next characteristic is about taking initiative to share and capture knowledge. And, how many times have we heard of somebody that's retiring and and people are running around saying, hey, we got to capture everything that she knows before she leaves because it's all in her head. And, how organizations effectively, capture and share that knowledge is really important. The next one is to think systematically and solve problems with data and analysis. And oftentimes, organizations go after simple solutions. Think of them as like a point solution. You got a problem, you go after one factor, point solution. Most times when problems occur, there's multiple causal factors. And so you need to approach it in a more system-based approach, systematic thinking to create more complex solutions to problems that often are complex. And the last characteristics is a willingness to change based upon your experience and the knowledge that you gain. And Carl, what I've often found is in our collaborations together, a lot of what I just talked about there fits very nicely with what you do with performance thinking. So could you talk about that sort of complementary aspect?
Yeah, it's really stunning when I listen to you because there's so many features that align. I mean, the foundation of what we do, of course, as I said, is we take relatively complex models and make them so anybody can learn about them, apply them, and communicate. So for starters, that's kind of a foundation for a learning organization because it allows continuous learning with and from one another. But also we're data-based. We start with analysis of performance. And the thing you say about being systemic and systematic is a big part of it. We've seen over and over again how senior, executives or not so senior people assume something like training is the solution, or we're going to do process improvement or whatever, and they don't put the whole thing together. So what you described as a systemic or systematic approach is exactly what we teach in a way that everybody can contribute. And I think that's why I'm really excited about our working together. I wonder if you can tell us a little bit about how the work evolved at Amgen, a little bit of a case study, if you will.
Sure. Yeah. So Bill and I met because of a common colleague, Bill Blunt. Bill was somebody that Carl had been working with, and he was kind of in the middle of an organization. And Bill came out of the Navy's nuclear program. He was an enlisted, senior enlisted operator, most senior in one of his final jobs. He used a role we call the Bull Nuke, the senior enlisted in the engineering department. And Bill came to Amgen, and after some time in the commercial nuclear industry where he focused on human performance and in improving human performance. And so Bill and I had been starting to connect at Amgen at a time when I got asked to take over the operational excellence organization within operations. I was reporting to the executive vice president of operations, and he kind of gave me a blank sheet. He said, design your own organization. You have the pen here. Tell me what you need, what you want. And so I came back to him with sort of a wiring diagram of what the new organization was going to be. The first component was I wanted a knowledge management organization. And so I created a role, a director of knowledge management. But the next thing I told him is I said, I want to get the learning and performance organization, an existing organization that was sitting off in an organizational cul-de-sac somewhere. I don't remember where it was. Said I wanted to bring it over and have it report under me. And I remember he looked at me and he said, why would you do that? Why would you want to do that? It's just gonna kind of take up your time. And my answer was that for me, operational excellence is all about learning. Like in order to be excellent in operations, you have to be committed to learning. And the learning and performance organization is one that can really punch above its weight. It can leverage like the tools that Carl has brought to us with the performance thinking, and being able to really improve performance based upon these characteristics of the learning organization. And I think, what I saw being very powerful, once I kind of got committed to it, and I was able to kind of break through the senior executive ranks and connect with the manufacturing site heads and the plant managers. I was able to create a lot of enthusiasm around it. And in fact, today, Amgen sits as I think a company with the most certified practitioners, nearly 300 that Carl and Performance Thinking Network is certified. So it's a company that's really embraced it and to great results.
It's It's exciting, frankly, for me to hear you speak the way you do about the integration of learning and performance with other functions, because we see so many organizations where sort of the learning or training group is in its own silo. We even have a white paper called Get Out of the Training Box, and where other folks treat them as kind of like a service that they, kind of order takers. And the thing is, if you're going to get return on investment, not just from training, but process improvement, compensation, all the rest of it, they need to collaborate. They need to work together. And our 6 boxes model is a way to integrate all that and see how all the parts fit together. What I'm kind of excited about working with clients going forward with you is you can come in with executive credibility and a strong voice about exactly that point, being systematic and systemic, and the notion of looking at the whole performance system. And we can follow up with certifying people to deliver. And so I'm pretty excited about that. How do you imagine our collaboration going forward?
Well, I see what I'm trying to do is to work with executive teams, and in particular in operations and around kind of industrial environments, and in creating a high reliability organization based on those principles that I've talked about, and others with the nuclear submarines. But your work in performance thinking is very complementary with that, because it's really an important way to maximize human performance. How do you really understand when errors are made? How do you really understand those errors, at the individual level, at the understanding the multifactorial effects that occur when you have bad outcomes, and when things happen, oftentimes, it's down to individuals making mistakes. You say, well, how does that happen? And your tools and performance thinking, and the 6 boxes in particular, is a way to really get to the important root causes to address. And so I look at leveraging your work with the work I'll be doing with executives as I get my consulting business going.
So one last comment about that as I listen to you, which is that many have described our work as a design engineering approach to performance. And that has sort of the positive impact of the learning organization or continuous improvement, because not only do we want to find out why things went wrong, we want to optimize the system for continuous improvement. And so I'm really excited about this. I can hardly wait to get into a new client organization working with you.
I know, I am too, Carl. And with that, maybe we close out here and just say it's great to work together here, and maybe you'll see us again doing one of these on another topic.
All right. Thanks a lot, Dennis.
Okay.
Thank you.